Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real-time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. Well, welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Today's guest has 30 years of experience as a professional athlete and coach. She's a 6-time iron distance champion, has a deep background in exercise science and nutrition, triathlon coach with the Team Sirius Tri Club. And if you look at her social media, they have a lot of fun. She also runs 2 nonprofits, Believe Ranch and Rescue, and In Your Hands Action Fund. Welcome, Rebekah Keat. Welcome, Rebekah.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have you on the show. So we love talking about endurance and the endurance mindset. So my question to you is, Beck, tell me how your endurance mindset has impacted your life unexpectedly.
Oh my God, that's such a great question. So many times, it's something you have in your toolbox and you don't even know it. And I think Ironman specifically, the endurance, the biggest endurance sport for me in my career has been the Ironman distance. I started short course, but Olympic distance is still an endurance event, of course. And wow, I've had some like everybody has a bit of a roller coaster. Everybody has their really difficult times, and a couple of mine have been more recent. One that obviously has really affected us, but in a positive way in the end. Although at the time you don't really know what the gift is in the struggle. My amazing wife, Siri Linley, who I'm sure you would all know, a former world champion, coach to world champions, inducted into the Hall of Fame recently. Actually, we need to get her on the show, Greg. She was diagnosed 3 years ago with acute myeloid leukemia, and she had about a less than 5% of survival, chance of survival. And thank God to 2 clinical trials. She had a genetic mutation they'd never seen, and they weren't really sure whether she'd survive. And both of us, I feel like our endurance sport and our mindset that we had to apply every single day to overcoming adversity and in training and in like whatever else pops up. But I've gone through a lot of other struggles too. But that mindset we both applied to this is not her time and we will find a way to victory. And she did. And I was a big part of that. Obviously, they always say that it's almost just as hard on a partner. I don't agree with that at all. But what she went through and her mindset there and my mindset to get through it was all of the tools and strategies I'd learned as an endurance athlete, to never give up, to always find gratitude from something, no matter what the situation, but to always keep like stepping forward and doing your best in every single moment. And what can you, being present as well, and what can you do at every single moment to make this a successful outcome? And I did that in training every single day, 30 years before she was diagnosed. I started the sport at like 16, and we just applied that same mindset together and we got through it. And she's now speaking for the Leukemia Society and going to lobby a bill to get more funding for clinical trials in DC. And she's got a documentary film coming out, and we're just an awesome team. And having 2 endurance queens that are married together is pretty cool. I feel like almost God or the universe, whoever you believe in, kind of gifted us this struggle because they knew that we'd get through it. So there's a few other moments too, but definitely that's the big one.
I'm so happy to hear that end of the story versus the other end of the story. So congrats to both you and to your endurance mindset. I mean, that is a huge part of it. In fact, I had a health scare about 2 years ago at a straddle pulmonary embolism. And the only reason I really figured it out was because I'm like, wait, I train every day and my heart shouldn't be going through this walking up a flight of stairs. And reached out to a doctor, and next thing you know, I was in the ER for 4 days. But it's those types of moments, right, that you truly appreciate the endurance mindset and how it can affect and impact your life, again, unexpectedly. I'd love to get into your professional days and how you learned to never give up, to have gratitude, to be like, 'cause I suspect when you first became a professional athlete, that wasn't your approach. And maybe over time, you started appreciating these little tidbits that have then now impacted your life. Can you talk about sort of those days and how you discovered those lessons?
Yeah, my mindset's definitely evolved, but I've always been one that will find a way. It's intrinsic. And I feel like you're you're born with it, but I was also thrown in an environment as a kid where I had this awesome identical twin. I've got a picture of her over here. And we actually have identical twin nieces too. You can't see her very well there, but my identical twin, Simone, we look very alike, and they're my identical twin nieces. We're twins and twins. We have a lot of fun.
Wow.
And she always says that's not true. She was better at everything. We were so competitive, and I think it was my intrinsic motivation to be the best I can be, but having an identical twin that is better at everything. And Siri had the same with her sister, believe it or not. She just had that little bit more natural talent. And we would, and a perfect example is and I would check her bike gear and go, do you have like a better gear on your bike? Or is there something going on with your chain that like it pedals itself? Like I remember riding home from school when we were 10 to like 16, and we would race from the bottom of the hill. Not once did I beat her. And that's got to have been like several hundred times. And one day I was just like, what is this? And my dad said to me, well, you just got to train a little bit. We'll do some like, behind the scenes training. She won't know. And like dad would be pushing behind me, his hand on my back, be pushing behind me like this. So I could keep up with her sometimes because he didn't want her to know that I was struggling. And so we did some training, and then I got into triathlon. That's where I found myself. And my sister loved, going out and partying a little bit, and obviously loved boys. And I wasn't interested in that at all. Not because I'm bad, just wasn't interested in boys or partying. I just found myself in the sport and found my identity. But I thank my sister for that. And she said, oh, I wasn't that much better than you. And she really was, other than team sports. She pushed me, alongside the intrinsic motivation that I already had. She pushed me to just always, find a way and to find like the absolute best in myself, like in every moment. And I did that in my sport. I didn't really do it at school. I was okay at school. She was really high achiever at school as well. I was nowhere near where she was at academically, but sport wise, I thank my twin for that push.
Well, hopefully she's listening and she appreciates the gratitude there. Beck, walk us through your professional career. Like how you just talked about how you got into triathlon, or you got into sport through a push from your sister. When did that light bulb turn on that, hey, I could be a professional here? And then I'd really like to dig into some of these victories and what that feels like. Because I'm at the back of the pack and you're at the front of the pack. So we got to share some stories.
No, I was really fortunate because mum had put us through basketball, netball, tennis, soccer. We did everything. Cross country, race walking, athletics. Our athletics coach was a race walker. God knows I didn't love that sport at all, but we were fit. We were endurance athletes. We're always a little bit chubby, and she put us into sport because we loved food, and she overfed us as kids. Like our baby photos were like, I was like, Mom, what were you doing? She's like, I didn't want you to be malnourished because she was left in an orphanage as a kid. So she wanted the opposite for us. So we were quite chubby kids, and we used to get called like the fat kids and the fat twins. And it kind of like got me on a trajectory like, okay, I want to do something about this. I'm going to be the best in the sport that I do. So every sport I did, even though I was always a little bit of a chubby kid, I always wanted to be the best. And you'd see us at basketball games, and we weren't that fit. We tried so hard. Our faces would be beetroot because we were carrying that little bit of extra weight. We would try so hard. And like, I think that starting off doing those sports and then going at school, I never forget my career advisor. I loved him, Barry Overs. He still works at Aubrey High School. I went to Aubrey High School. He said, oh, we're going to do cycling for a school sport. I was so excited. That would not be allowed now. It's way too dangerous. But he's like, you can ride my bike. And he's like 6 foot. I had no idea. He's like 6 foot. I get on his bike. I like basically poling myself. I can't even touch the ground. Like I literally glad I didn't like land on that, but I did fall at the first set of lights. I clicked my feet in, fell off, and I was like, oh God, this is so scary. I couldn't get my foot out. He didn't teach me really how to click it out. He's just like, click in, off you go. And like we're riding through the main streets of this country town. We didn't really ride very far, but there was something about that freedom of being on the bike that I just loved. And then I started doing the aquathons, and I was just, I think I was definitely talented, but I also was one that would try so hard, and I would win the little aquathons and beat some of the open women as a 16-year-old. And then I actually got to be more confident with my self-image because I started to lose the body fat and started to get really lean. And I was, this is awesome. And that was half the battle. And my sister became a dancer, and I went down the kind of the aquathon and then into duathlon. I won duathlon world champs. I think that, that trophy there, you can see that one. That's actually, that was my world championship. First ever world title in 96 as a junior. But I went into duathlon first. I won the junior duathlon world champs in 94. And I was like, oh my God, I'm really good at this. I qualified somehow fourth in the team, and the same with the Australian champs. I qualified in last position as a 16-year-old for the Cleveland, Ohio, like Olympic World Championships. Olympic World Championships, and I won it. Like I went in as an underdog. I had this awesome Ukrainian coach who just was a badass. Like he was like, I won't even tell you those stories, but he made me so tough mentally, and I won it. And I wasn't meant to win. They were like, this little kid, Rebekah, who qualifies in fourth in the Australian team. She's 16 and she's racing under 23s. And I got third overall in the under 23s, and I got first in the under 19s. And I was like, okay, that was really, that was only probably my third or fourth triathlon. I won a junior world championship, and I was like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. And then I just realized I had the speed, but over ITU, I wasn't a great swimmer. And my wife, Siri, raced ITU, which is the short course, and she became a good swimmer. And I never really had someone take on my swim. So I was always second, third pack, and never ended up making the front in the short course. But I realized that I could hold that for like hours and hours. I could hold that same speed over the Olympic. I'd go to 70.3 and I'd be doing like 4 hours 10 in my first half. And 4 hours 30 in my first half Ironman. In my first Ironman, I went 9:03. And so the longer I went, the more I realized that I was capable of the longer distance. So I did my first Ironman in 2004. I won it. Got the fastest Australian time ever, world rookie record in 9:03, and then didn't look. I think I ended up winning over 30 half Ironmans, possibly more. I think I stopped counting at like 23, but went to Brett Sutton, and I didn't lose a race the first 2 years of my career, and I beat some really big names, and and then that's when my body actually started to break down after training with Brett. It was, you're done. Your body needs a rest. But it was totally worth it, and I don't regret it at all. I loved him as a coach. He also coached Siri, and a lot of our coaching and the way we coach is from very old school, but it works. Even though I'm exercise science background, we're very old school. I do use metrics when I need to, but we're more like rate of perceived effort and like feel. We like to coach by feel. So I thank him, and I thank Siri for that as well. Yeah.
Let's get into your coaching and how you use all that experience in what you're doing today with your athletes.
Yeah, so I came from an exercise science background. I actually didn't finish my degree. I quit in the last year. I was racing on the circuit and doing really well, so I didn't finish my last few subjects. So I actually can't claim my bachelor in exercise science. But I got right up to the final few subjects, and I learned so much with that. And I thought, I'm going to be like a full science geeky coach that is all on metrics and numbers and power. And then I started to get coached by Brett, and then later on Siri, and still did really well with her as well. And the approach was very, very different. It was go by feel. I mean, this is like Siri's coached, I think, 14 world titles and 2 Olympic medals. So this is just like, I'm just going to do it because it feels right. There's trial and error here, and there's proof in the pudding, right? She has the score on what do they say? The runs on the board. If you don't know Siri, like you'll know she just got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and Brett too. He's probably one of the most renowned male coaches, with Daniela Reef's multiple world titles, Nicholas Berg, multiple Olympic gold medalists. But one thing I noticed that they do not go by metrics. They do not go by. I sometimes had to say to Siri, well, his FTP is actually 4.2 because this is what he weighs. Like, did you not work that out? Like, we joke about it, but I love those numbers, but they're not how we coach. And I use them. And some people, depending on the athlete, some people that are so numbers driven, I can't kind of like negate that altogether. I have to play a part of it and have a balance, but I'm definitely more towards the feel and rate of perceived effort because it worked for me. It's worked for multiple world champions that Siri coached. Brett as a coach, one of the best in the world. I can tell you right now, he would totally kill an exercise science an exam because he's scientific, but he doesn't speak about it. But he knows what he's freaking doing. And even though he won't talk about the science behind it, like he was very driven by like how you feel and just not having that, I kind of call it like a glass ceiling for looking at your power numbers and thinking, I need to go harder. I'm not going hard enough, constantly gauging yourself. And it's gotten worse and worse and worse with social media now. And back then there wasn't a lot of social media, but now you're always being judged. And like, I think that looking at your Garmin when you're going as hard as you can, like how is that going to help you? Like, it's not going to help you if you're going as hard as you can. Not looking at your numbers is not going to make you go any harder if you're going as hard as you can. So that's kind of my theory. It's very rate of perceived effort, go by feel, listen to your body, We use Metro and Data when we need to because we both coach virtually. So she's moved more into the speaking side, but coaching virtually, I need to see the numbers, but I have my guys focus on for the bike, it's cadence. For the swim, we do look at speed in the clock. I try to teach them to think like swimmers and look at the clock, but a lot of it's still feel. And the run, we use treadmills and we use speed when we need to, but it's not all numbers focused. It's more going by feel. So I don't know how you feel about that. And there's the coaches like the Matt Dixons who are all numbers and it freaking works for them. Like they're amazing coaches, but just not what works for me. So there's plenty of ways to coach in different coaching styles. That's just what's worked for us.
So I'm really fascinated by that. And I would say I'm a mix of both. Again, I'm the one at the end coming in. I get my money's worth, I like to say. It's as a coach, what types of questions are you asking your athletes to gauge their feel? Right? Because feeling is such a difficult expression. Like I can say I'm a 7.
I don't.
Am I really a 6.5 or am I an 8.1? So as a coach, how do you get around that? How do you, obviously active listening and those types of skills, but there's got to be a rhythm you have that helps you assess the feel of the athlete.
Usually they come for like a 2-day camp and I see them and I'll say, I want you to go flat out for a 50-meter freestyle. And I was like, that wasn't flat out. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, you're still talking to me. And you're so right, because rate of perceived effort, it can be hard because there's people that will say they're at a 9 out of 10 and they're really at a 7. And those that have really high pain threshold and have a high capacity to push themselves really hard, you'll notice that their 8, 9 out of 10 it may be equivalent to their 7 out of 10 might be equivalent to someone's 9. So it is hard, but I have to admit at the start when I'm coaching someone virtually, we do video feedback and I look at what they're doing and I look at their breathing and I'll say, well, what was your heart rate? And I'll know basically from their age, we don't do a heart rate test, but I'll kind of know your heart rate's 130. You're really not pushing as hard as you can. So I say that to them. I say, hey, your max is about 180. So you're kind of a fair way off that. So I do go back to the heart rate then and just knowing by watching them virtually, asking them, are you really going as hard as you can? Were you at the end of the wall, out of breath for those swims, for that set, on your 50 flat out? And I can see, when they come for their camp, I can tell where they're at. Are they really a 9 out of 10? Or they're one of those people who has a kind of a lower threshold? And for me, it's really hard as a coach to adjust to that because I just want and assume everyone knows how to hurt themselves. And a lot of people don't, but then their goals are different. Some people, if they come to me and say, I want to qualify for the world champs, well, let's not even go down that rabbit hole right now because it's a complete mess. I'm not going to talk about that. But say back in the day when it was hard to qualify, especially for women, and we can talk about that if you want to, but when it was hard to qualify, that's a goal. You want to get top 3 in your 40 to 45 age group as a woman. You're going to be racing Didi Grace Bowers. She's still pro. She's going 9 hours. So I'll know you're going to have to break sub 10. And you come to me and I look at your work ethic. I'm like, it's not going to cut it. And I really have to be honest with them. But a lot of the time, and the people that I love to coach are honestly a C-suite executive that's never done an Ironman is fully immersed and ready to go all in, but has no clue about anything. That's kind of my favorite client. And not even just a C-suite. I'm saying that because I need to value my time more now. And I sort of have the higher end coaching fees, but they have that work ethic already because they've gotten to where they are in their business and it's they're ready. And then, so it's been hard for me to not have people that are as motivated and have as high a pain threshold. I have to struggle with that a little bit as a coach, and you kind of end up sifting them out or they sift themselves out. So the athletes that I have tend to, and I guess it's the same with anything, tend to have similar mindsets to me. But then again, I've had to adjust with our fitness group with the Syrian Back Squad because that's just 15 to 20 minutes a day. And these guys are not high achievers or high achievers in sport or high endurance athletes. So that's been completely different again. So I'm learning as always learning and evolving. It's hard. The different personalities, that's been one of the struggles I've had a little bit as a coach. Why don't you want to hurt yourself? Come on. It just doesn't work for some people. It does not work. Yeah.
Beck, you mentioned mindset, and that led into my next question around sort of virtual training. You just explained really well how you can get a sense of where the athlete is, just even virtually. How do you work with your athletes from a mindset perspective?
I usually give them to Siri. She's the queen. I've had to learn a lot from my wife. And to be honest, I've invested a lot in personal development, done a lot of Tony Robbins events, because for me, it's like I found it difficult. You're right. As like, why isn't everyone as motivated as me? Why doesn't everyone want to just push themselves? Like, I don't get it. And I've just had to learn to balance those personalities. But I try to link it to their why. I link it to, like, you don't want to just get that finisher's medal. There's always something so much deeper. Like for you, it could be your kids, or I don't even know if you have kids. Do you have kids?
I do. I had 2 kids,
So
2 girls.
for you, it could be your kids. Like you said, you had a pulmonary embolism. Like, hey, Greg, like, don't you want to be around for your kid, like for their, for their wedding or their 21st birthday? And you're over, this is not you, this is an example. You're overweight, you're carrying a lot of weight, you have a lot of extra stress on your heart. Like you could even have heart disease or diabetes or whatever you have, this chronic illness. Like, if you don't do something about it now, you're not even going to see their birthday. You're not even going to see their wedding. And so I try to, and it's not always that. There's so many different reasons, but I always try to go a little deeper into why they're doing what they do. I've got an amazing athlete who, Morris Sutton, his son Jackie, and it's actually been a huge bonding experience for them. And they're so close now. And I try to say them, like, I let them race together at first. They literally race side by side. And I'm like, guys, Jackie's 21, you're 60, mate. Like, you just got to let him go. Like, Jackie, you're going. And so I made him do his own race, and he knocked about 2 hours off his time. I was like, see what I told you? Like, you can do some races with dad, but then dad's got to have his own journey too. But it's been beautiful seeing that. So his reason was to connect with his son, and he has a big family and wanted to have that connection. And now they have that through the sport. So it's always different, but there's always something way more than the superficial. I just want the Ironman medal or run down the finish chute. So I try to dig a bit deeper, and I've actually learned a lot from my wife in how to do that, because that hasn't been something that I've been very good at. But it's so important. It's not just about finishing or getting the finisher's medal. It's like, why do you want to do this? Like, how are you going to feel, and how's it going to make you feel, and why is it so important? And I think as a coach, when someone comes to me, I get, 3 or 4 requests a week, and it usually has to be a no, because if I don't feel that and don't have that connection with them, I know that it's not going to be a successful coaching relationship.
It's one of those exercises that come to mind of asking 5 whys, right? Why are you doing this? Well, why are you doing that? Well, why this? And then by the time you get to the 5th why, you're at the core of what the person's after.
I love that. It does take about 5. You're right. Yeah, that's a good trick. I love it.
Yeah, switching gears. We talked a little bit about your nonprofit work. I'd love to get in and have you tell that story to the audience as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. We were like both, I was still an elite athlete, still racing professionally. I think I'd won like not long before the 70.3, like my 7th time I'd won Shepparton, and 70.3 was my home local race. I think it became a challenge race actually, 70.3. And then we went to, my wife literally, and I laugh, and Tony laughs at this. I don't know if people that are familiar with Tony Robbins, but if you haven't been to an event, you have to go. All our businesses have been created thanks to him, and it's mindset and strategy. But she dragged me to unleash the power within. And I was like, because my sister loved Tony Robbins, she listened to all his tapes, and I was like, it just seems like a bit of a cult like leader. He knows that I've said this. I feel terrible. It's so not true. But if you search Tony Robbins on social media, like, not on social media, but if you Googled him back then, like 10 years ago, these things come up, and I'm like, what is this? Is this like a religious cult? Like, what is it? Completely not. It is not what it is. It's amazing. We went to our event, kind of went the first couple of hours. I'm like the high-fiving and dancing. That's not really me. I'm quite introverted, to be honest, even though I seem like an extrovert. And so is my wife, to be honest. And then day 2, I went a bit more. Day 3, I was there all day. Day 4. And then day 5, we like signed up for his next event. Business Mastery, 8 grand tickets. We're doing it, like with putting your heart and soul into your business. And I was like, I need this. And like, I realized that my identity wasn't just triathlon. It was like, I loved horses. I loved animals. I want to do something outside of myself and contribute and make a difference. And it's like, being a professional athlete is so selfish. You have to be the best. But I was done with that. I was like, I want to do something way more. I want to make a difference in this world. And I knew it was going to be to do with animals. So we started our Team Sirius Tri Club, and I started coaching back in 2016. I was already coaching for many years, but we started Team Sirius Tri Club. We've built that up, and now we're more focused on training plans. We have like sprint to Olympic to Ironman, beginner, advanced, all levels, off-season plans, all sorts of plans, everything you can think of under the sun, written by me and Siri. together over many, many, many years. And we saw a video. I remember Siri was up in her office. She started screaming, and I was like, oh my God, one of her family members has died. And I ran up, and I won't go into too much detail, but that was showing what happens to American horses when they're shipped for 3 days without water. Half of them get off the cattle truck in Mexico and they're already half dead. They're broken bones, busted eyes. And then the way they're killed, I won't tell you, but it's so inhumane. It's so inhumane. There is no quality control of the humane process there. And it's a loophole in our system. And I was like, this is happening to our horses. Like, I'm American now, I'm a citizen. So I say, this is happening to our horses. I'm like, what? And Siri will not, this is no lie. Within 2 weeks, we've saved 5 horses. They're on our 2-acre property. People that were the crazy horse people. Like, I grew up with horses, but I wasn't very good. Like, I grew up on a farm. So I was aware of a little bit about them, but not much at all. And rescue horses did a lot of work. So we had 5, convinced our neighbor to lease the land for free, like got 5 more. We had 10. We're like, oh my God. And I'd retired. I was like, this is my why. This is what I'm here to do. I am here to save horses. Like, this is my jam. And we ended up moving to bigger property in 2018 on 32 acres, had like 40 horses. And since then, we've saved 298 horses from slaughter. We also created, so that's our 501c3, Believe Ranch and Rescue, if you want to follow us. And then in 2019-20, we were like, so we'd saved about 200 by then. And we were like, okay, so why is this even happening? Why is there not a legislative process, a legislative bill that bans this? And then we got into the rabbit hole. People like, you'll never pass this bill to end horse slaughter. It's a loophole. It exists. Big ag will shut you down every time, which they have every time. But we're slowly understanding why it's never passed. So for 20 years, they've been trying to pass legislation to end horse slaughter. And right now, it's a defund language where the slaughterhouses aren't allowed to be opened here. But these people known as kill buyers or killer buyers go to auction, outbid all rescues like us, outbid private buyers, take the horses, this horrible trip to Mexico, because the per pound amount you get for horse meat is way more than beef. They make a lot of money off it, and Europeans eat it for human consumption. Thank God now, because of the meat's so bruised and horrible the way they're treated, Europe stopped importing from Mexico, so the numbers have dropped a lot. But we created this huge lobbying and education organization, 501c4, thanks Tony Robbins' Business Mastery. And so we have the C3, Believe Ranch Rescue, the C4 in our Hand Action Fund, or of course is in our hands on social media. And we're working with Animals Angels, these big groups that I have been following since a kid, like Animals Angels. Oh my God, we're working with these amazing humans that all they want to do is save animals. Like, it's my everything. I grew up with animals. They saved my life, like saved Siri's life many, many a times. And so we're working with these really key horse advocates and working on a way to get this legislation through. And it's been a hard battle. We're not political at all. Like, I barely know who the president is. Like, I'm just not politically inclined or involved. I don't like politics. I hate it. And we're in DC lobbying this bill, but all we knew is that if we are in our heart and we show them what's happening, like, hopefully love will always win. And it's been a big learning curve because we're up against a lot of PAC money, a lot of big ag that think you're, going in to do a lot more than what you are doing. You just want to do the right thing and save lives. So it's been a big process, but like the endurance mindset there, that was another thing that came up when you said, what have you learned through the sport? Like that endurance mindset, like we've been lobbying this ban on horse slaughter since 2019. It's been 4 years. And last year we had a little bit of a break from it because it was just so involved. Like, we were exhausted. We both got almost like a kind of a chronic fatigue from just non-stop meetings and trying to find a way. And so we took a step back, and now all these big groups have come together to try and work on this ban together. So it takes a bit of pressure off us. We have 30 horses ourselves to take care of, 3 dogs, a cat. Both I've got 2 for-profits. Siri's got her speaking and like trying to pass legislation at the same time. It's like, I can't do this on our own.
That's a lot.
We'll find a way. So sorry, that was so long-winded, but when you're an endurance athlete, that's just what you do, right? That's all you know.
Yeah. So how can an audience member support those organizations?
Oh my God, that would be amazing. We just had Giving Tuesday, and our operating costs per month are about between 25 and 30,000. It's a lot of money. Thank God my wife gets to speak, and most of it's covered by her. But we raised 20,000 on Giving Tuesday, and you can honestly, that's amazing. That covers most of our costs for a whole month. these rescues take a lot to feed because a lot of them are underweight and they need special nutrition and veterinary requirements. So they could just go to our website, believeranch-and-rescue.com, or our social media at Believe Ranch and Rescue. And it's also on my social handles, which is Rebekah Keat, Team Sirius Tri Club, Siri Lindley. Any way they want to donate, we're having like a little 12 days of Christmas coming up soon where you can sponsor, you can choose a horse to sponsor. So we have 32 beautiful souls we're taking care of right now. And hey, we'll be doing we do equine therapy as well. So if you have a group that wants to come out that's in need of a bit of horse healing, we do private group healings with like our equine assisted coaching, and Siri actually runs it. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And we'll put all those links in the show notes. My older brother is mentally handicapped, and he lives in a community down in Southern Virginia, and they have a very big horse program for the handicapped adults that live there. And it's amazing the connection between the horse and the human, both ways, right? It's almost like you could recognize them, that relationship starting.
It's so real. And, I have trouble sometimes being present because I'm a high achiever. I'm always like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What do I do? What do I do? But with horses, all they know is presence. They don't know future or past.
Mm-hmm.
They just have presence, and you have to be present in it with the horse. And they just released, like, I think a couple of years ago, this HeartMath study. And HeartMath does all of these studies, and they showed an ECG or EKG of a horse and a human. And the science showed that your heart, with the electromagnetic field, this is why you feel so calm around a horse. If they're calm, and they can feel you. So when you come close to a horse within about 6 feet, they can hear your heartbeat. I think it's actually more than that. It might be 10 feet. And their electromagnetic field, their heart will try to sync with yours. So your heart will try to sync with theirs. So if their and heartbeat's about 25 to 30, if you go in and you're relaxed, it will bring your heart rate down. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing. And that's why there's many reasons why you feel calm around a horse, but that's one of many.
That's really insightful. A friend of mine, my next door neighbor actually, bought a dude ranch in Idaho called Red Horse Mountain Ranch. He bought it about a year ago. I've visited there probably 4 different times for entrepreneurs retreat. I've taken my family a couple of times. What should I communicate to him as a new ranch owner? They've got 120 horses in their program across the summer. The horses, I think, live somewhere else across the winter. But it seems like I need to reach out to him, like, hey, man, you got to learn about some of this stuff going on in your industry.
Yeah.
And he'll certainly gobble.
So you're talking about the federal bill?
Well, more just the horses in general. Like, how can I educate him a little bit? Or
yeah, I know.
Where should I point him?
Well, it's funny because, so firstly, with the spiritual side of horses, I feel like a lot of people, and especially horse racing, and that's another story, although it is getting a little better. But I've got people that are very wealthy horse owners that are horse racing, and they didn't even know about the healing or therapeutic side, or they don't care about it, or didn't care about it. And once they actually open up to that, they're like, oh God, they're not just tools. Oh. And usually dude ranchers, and he's new, so he may not have that mindset if he hasn't been brought up with it. Most of the dude ranchers, it's come down from generations, and all they know is I get on the horse and you ride. That's the way you connect with them. But there's so much more to it. Like, horses are so intuitive, and like a lot of the time with the dude ranchers, if he's taken over dude ranch horses, they're being trained to like just do a job, and some of them love that. But if there's one's playing up, or one's like sort of telling you they don't want to go, or you got to be really intuitive. Like, some of them aren't made for that stuff. Like, they don't want to do that. They just want to like hang out in the field or do therapy or be loved on. And you can tell, like, if a horse is acting up, it's always because he's not happy, or he's hurting, or he's something. And I think as a dude ranch owner, they need, most of the people aren't open to that. But I love that he's your friend, you can have an open conversation, because they will tell you, like, they know, like, if they're acting up, they're in pain, or they just don't want to be there. And we love positive reinforcement. And you can learn a lot from that training. And he might want to look into that. We use natural horsemanship with our horses, kind of Pirelli style, which he would know about. But on the legislative side too, like these dude ranches, 90% of the time, and that's maybe where we can connect together, is these dude ranch horses have done their job, they've done their work. And then I don't think he would do this, but a lot of the time they may get an abscess or a sore shoulder, or they're just above 20 and they're not keeping up in the trail rise. They dump them at auction, and they're dumping like 10, 20 at a time, sometimes 30. And they don't, and sometimes it's just ignorance. They don't know that these horses, 90% of the time, they're going to be slaughtered. Like you're worrying about getting $400 for your horse when it's served you its entire life, and you could retire it with a rescue who would probably give you a similar amount. A lot of the time we try to say, hey, donate your horse because we're going to take care of it. It needs to be rewarded for taking care of humans its whole life. It shouldn't be dumped at auction. But a lot of the time they either don't know, they're ignorant, they don't know, or they don't care because they just want to get money for the horse. And that's sad because about 90% too of the horses are quarter horses, and that's what they use for the trail rides. So a lot of the quarter horses end up being dumped when they're either too old or can't keep up or have an injury. And it's sad because they could be used for equine therapy, or you could just give them a peaceful ending with euthanasia, which is only about $120. If a horse is really badly injured and it can't be brought back, which I believe most of the time that's not the truth, because we have had horses that they're like, he's done, you got to put him down. We're like, no, he's not ready. Euthanasia is $120. And if you want to do the cremation, it's a lot more, but you can, like, if you do it properly, you could bury a horse on your property. And I just feel like they deserve that. They deserve that after humans their whole life. So if your body's ready to like get rid of horses or send them to auction, we'll take them. We'll help them and rehome them or give them a like happy retirement right here at Believe Ranch and Rescue. I'd love to offer that.
Awesome. I will make that connection for sure. Well, Beck, now that I've got you fired up, I want to bring you back to the topic of qualifying for Kona. You seemed to like spark a little interest in you, and we deferred away from it, but I just want to give you a platform to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it, you know. I don't know a lot, but I know enough that I feel like the general vibe is like people, it's sort of like there's two things, like people that have that qualify just by a roll down for like 30 spots. I feel like it takes away the whole meaning of qualifying for a world championship. I mean, I feel like it used to be something like you qualify, and that is like an achievement. Like you qualify because you are one of the best age groupers in the world, and that's how you qualified. So, and I feel like it's a world championship. It's not like a local derby. Like to go to a world championship, there should be some qualification process where you've earned your stripes. So for me personally, and this is not everyone's take, but then I'm like, you know, some people may want to go because they do a lottery spot. And I do like if they're raising money for a good cause, I'm all for that. But when it rolls down to 30 people and then they're doing 17 hours and they qualify for world championship, personally, and I hope that doesn't offend anyone, but I just don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. And it just takes away from the whole glory of qualifying. So, you know, you hear people are qualified. I'm like, yeah, but you did 17 hours. How's that? So I don't know, and I think it takes away from the quality of field as well, and it takes away from that. But the other one is, you know, they can go and do any other race, but they shouldn't be qualified for a world championship. I'm sorry, that's just how I feel, and I'm sorry if I offend you. But and the other one is a women's and men's race, and I actually agree with having the women's race on a different day. I think that's amazing because we never got the coverage we should have gotten, and we deserved at least a 50-50 coverage, and we never got that. Like. We used to watch the feed of Ironman on live, and it was just men. It's like, where are the women? Are we even here? Like, what's going on? Like, we're not even, where are we? And that affects sponsorship and income. And like, we never got paid as much to race. We never got, the prize money was usually equal, but the appearance fees and all that sponsorship, never, ever, ever as much as the men. So I think that is a really good thing. But like, you got people like Rinny's not racing anymore, but the Tim and Rinny, like, as if Rinny would want to race on a different like country to her husband if they're going to a world championship together. Like that's BS. And the same with age groupers. Your husband racing age group and you're both qualified, and then yet he's racing a week later in a different country. Like that would totally suck. So see what they're doing. And I know it's, for me, I feel like it's all about money. And I get that. I think they're in a sense, it's ruined the sport a little bit. I love that they want to give the women the coverage, but splitting it to two different continents, not a fan of that at all.
I'm a 100% agreement with you. You know, one of my favorite race stories is Challenge Roth in 2000.
That was my race.
Yeah, it was amazing. And my wife and I were doing it. And I knew Chrissy was there and she was participating in a relay. And so while I was on the bike, you know, you're in there and you see them coming through their second loop. And I never saw her because I just like, I had a secret crush on her. And I guess it's not secret anymore.
Who didn't though? She's a freaking animal.
Yeah, right. And so I don't see her on the run. I don't see her on the bike. And I'm like mile 6 on the run. And I hear like the crowd pick up. And here she comes, just like plowing by me. And it's like my favorite race story of all my races. It was the greatest race I've had. But to your point, you need to earn that. You need to earn that rubbing shoulders, getting into world championships. My path will be the donation path, but that's okay. Or the lottery after I've done.
But I love that because you're not doing it selfishly. It's not self-serving. You're doing this for something bigger outside yourself. It's the quality field thing. It's like, I don't know, it takes away from the achievement side, I think. So,
yeah. Beck, how can an audience member get in touch with you?
Okay. So I have an email, but it's really long. It's probably too long. You could just do info at siriandbeck.com. That's just our general email. And as I said, like, if you're thinking like that's just too big a thing to do, like sign up for a triathlon, that's way too much. We do have Siri and Beck Squad too, which is just the info at siriandbeck.com email will get you information on that as well. So that's our general one. And we have like the triathlon club under. We started Siri and Beck Squad because we wanted people to not be so intimidated by just going into their first triathlon, because most people just say, well, I can't swim, so I can't do a triathlon. So we start with fitness, general fitness, 15 to 20 minutes, and then we move them into like a 5K, a 10K, half marathon, and then they go into our tri plan. So it's been a really good way to get them into the sport. But yeah, I would just do info at siriandbeck.com or follow me on social media, Rebekah Keat _ Team Sirius Tri Club. I need to fix that. It's too long. But Team Sirius Tri Club, you'll find me there.
Is the squad group oriented, or is that one-on-one as well?
So it's kind of both. So we do a general program each month, 15 to 20 minute workouts. Sometimes it goes a little longer. And they all get the same program, but you can do it on any piece of equipment. It's all RPE and effort based. So you can do it on the bike, treadmill, rower, stepper, at home, walking on the spot. Like we do strength at home as well. So basically we wanted to do it in COVID when people couldn't go to the gym, or someone who's like wants to go zero to hero doesn't know where to start. So it starts with very basic, but it's all of our philosophy. So the workouts are a lot of hits and strength, and they can do it right from home. And it's, we do a live workout each week. Thank you for asking. We do a live workout each week with them in a live chat so they can stay on track. And then we have an amazing group of accountability partners, like 130 women, with some really cool, like ambassadors that help us work as coaches as well. And it's all through a Facebook group and then through like a live workout. So that's kind of the community. So it's group, but it's, I coach them one-on-one in a sense when I do the live workouts and stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. And that's really helpful to know. So audience members, if you need those links, they're included here in the show notes with a whole bunch of other great content. This conversation has gone in so many different directions that I didn't expect. I feel somewhat educated on horse. I'm going to definitely talk to my buddy about his ranch and become more of an advocate for you and what you're trying to do. Because that is disgraceful to be treating animals that way. Your Tony Robbins inspiration was fantastic. Like how the nonprofits were born out of this 5-day mastermind group. He's one of my heroes as well. And so it's fun that you scratched that itch. And I really enjoyed your never give up attitude and how that was instilled by your mom and your dad when you were young. And just, you were a little bit slower than your sister, but you still got that support and push. And eventually, you went your direction and she went hers. And, with 2 girls at home here, I see the same. Like they both excel in different things. And
how old are they?
12 and 15. I'm sorry, 11 and 15.
11 and 15. That's so cool. That's a hard age.
And my youngest is Simone. So when you mentioned Simone, I was like, oh, that's funny.
My girls are 7. So yeah, that's so cool.
It's a fun age. Yeah. Anyway, we could chat for hours. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for your inspiration. To the audience, if you like this show, please like it. If you like this podcast, please subscribe. Please share this message with our community, both from the horse advocacy perspective and from the triathlon training and endurance mindset perspective. This has been a great set of content, and let's spread it out through the world.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefinduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits.